Let you kids get to bed, I get the storybook.
Wack 100's War to End All Wars. On a muggy day in July of 2001, a chubby, red-headed corrections officer pressed a button that opened the steel gates that were the last layers of confinement that held newly paroled Piru gangbanger James Jones. Greeted by his one-time girlfriend Kimberly, he hugged and kissed her before hopping in the passenger seat of a burgundy Hyundai Sonata for the 6-hour drive from the Folsom State Prison Visitors Parking Lot to the valley in the Los Angeles area where the couple were both from and called home. During the drive, the short yet over-muscular gangster filled his future wife in on all of the plans that he'd made over the past 2 years involving his cellmate, former Death Row Records music mogul Marion Suge Knight, who was slated to be released the following month after a 4-year stint for a probation violation he committed after joining a beatdown of an opponent that his slain artist Tupac Shakur started at the MGM Grand Casino in Las Vegas. As June rolled around and the bear of a man was released, he and his new protege, now going by the name of Cash Jones, due to legally changing his name from James, hit the streets in fast motion. Suge reconnected with old cohorts and began rebuilding his declining label, changing distribution and renaming it The Row Records. Jones had changed his name to Cash because he made a vow to himself that when he got out of prison, he was going to be rich, and after 2 years of soaking up business skills from Suge, he was on his way to a higher tax bracket.
Hey, Big Suge, can I take a picture with you in your red Ferrari like Tupac did in the black Beamer back in the day?
The giddy gangster asked as the former mogul pulled up to his apartment to collect him for a business meeting one day, lips clutching one of the fat cigars he loved to puff. A short time later, his business partner found himself back behind bars for violating his parole after punching a parking lot attendant, which prompted Cash to make the decision not to work with him again when he was released, because Suge hadn't changed his ways from his death row days and was still doing dumb stuff that could land him back in prison. In 2005, Jones started using the street name Wack. 100 and Fortune found his doorstep as he launched an artist management firm, landing soon multi-platinum, selling rapper The Game as his first client. It was no looking back from that point on, and the Pacoima, Los Angeles, Piru's life was blossoming until he began slowly morphing into a scaled-down version of the man that he had severed ties with years prior. As the money poured into his bank accounts, the power he was gaining started getting to his head, and Wack 100 started becoming a baby Suge Knight, albeit without any physicalness. On a steamy yet cloudy, humid day in the present time, a bearded brown skin man walked angrily out into the pool area in the rear of a glorious mansion.
Hey, Pops, that fool got me. You seen the blogs yet?
The man spoke in a thick southern drawl as he held an ice pack to his swollen left eye. The infamous rap music mogul, Jay Prince, sat up in his lounge chair as he listened to his son, whom he named after himself, give details of how his arch-nemesis caught the younger man lacking at the MGM Grand Casino in Las Vegas, the same place where the Tupac incident happened. After Prince's ops music artist named Blueface approached his son and began pummeling his face with combination blows he learned from his boxing career, the pudgy Piru gangster Wack 100 and his small entourage jumped in, stomping J. Prince Jr. into unconsciousness, hurriedly exiting the building before law enforcement arrived.
So you mean to tell me this fake-ass Suge Knight did to you what Tupac did to that boy way back in 1996?
The elder Prince asked in astonishment, looking at his son's bruised and battered face, noticing he was missing several teeth when he opened his mouth to speak. The Rap-A-Lot King vowed to finally get even with the man who had been slandering his name for years on the internet and other platforms. Over the next few days, as the Prince family laid low, as social media went into a frenzy, after cell phone video footage was posted of J. Prince Jr. receiving the vicious beating as he cowered on the cold casino floor, the Prince sons aided their dad in doing research on all of the individuals that Wack 100 had argued with publicly up to that point, and their list grew a pair of legs longer than Shaquille O'Neal's. The pro-violent music manager chased Atlanta rapper Future through an airport, disrespected an LA street OG named Big U and the Rolling 60s Crip Gang, claimed Tupac was gay and capped about being a gangster, cursed out rapper 21 Savage, claimed Dipset member Jim Jones is a snitch, got into a skirmish with Nipsey Hussle's bodyguard after making rude comments about the late rapper, and even got into a fight with former heavyweight champion Mike Tyson while visiting his podcast, not to mention countless beefs with lesser-knowns like Charleston White, Hassan Campbell, Jay Diggs, and hundreds of others. The short and height ex-convict primarily attacked his victims on a popular app named Clubhouse. J. Prince didn't have enough fingers on both hands to count the number of times he and his family were slandered by the fearless thug, and this latest incident involving his precious son was the last straw. A week after Junior's beatdown, his dad began reaching out to individuals who'd feuded with the battle-ready Wack 100, going down the list of names his sons concocted for him after the conclusion of their research. In a matter of weeks, the nearly 60-year-old Houston boogeyman was able to put together a decent army of men who all had one goal in common: annihilate Wack 100. The day before J. Prince's planned attack on Wack's North Hollywood recording studio, where the rap manager primarily hung out at, even letting his ops know his location during shouting matches on Clubhouse, yelling out the Rap A-Lot Records founder had a meeting with all the members of his arranged army. The men converged at the Texan's Airbnb mansion he rented in the Hollywood Hills. They discussed strategy and mobilization for tomorrow's offensive. Pluto, aka Future, emphasized that no one touch Wack until he faced him and spit a loogie in his face, while Mopreme, Tupac's stepbrother, revealed that he was going to cut the shit-talker's eggplant emoji off and make him put it in his mouth. Everyone had their own plans and methods of torture for the chunky, pizza-faced bully, but J. Prince's idea won them over, and they all decided to go with his decision, which was to bury Wack 100 alive and record going out slow and painful, which they would anonymously live-stream on a fake Instagram account.
There may be rumors of me breaking up with Travis, but who cares about that? Right now, y'all need to smash the like button and subscribe button for my favorite YouTuber, GK David II. His stories are so crazy. We all know they're not real, but still the best shit on YouTube. They're like mini movies.
Say hello to my little friend. Tony Montana's Cuban-accented voice bellowed through Cash's office surround system as he emulated the fictitious movie mobster by snorting a line of pure on his desk as he sat enjoying the old movie that he'd watched 1,000 times before. He said, twerking out loud to himself as the white girl rushed to his head, causing dizziness and paranoia as the blood gangster eyed his bank of security monitors just like Scarface did while sitting in his office in the movie. Suge Knight said as he and his cellmate lay in their beds during lights-out time.
Nah, Big Suge, I ain't want no extra time on my end.
James said as he lay you on the top bunk, his mouth throbbing in pain as he spoke due to a bottom tooth being knocked out earlier in the day when he engaged in a scuffle with a Crip member who got the best of him.
Man, fuck some extra time.
Suge barked up at him as he lit a fat, cheap cigar that a guard smuggled into him.
As a matter of fact, Wack, hop down here and sit on my lap.
The big man's creepy request confused the smaller man because he never thought in a million years that the villainous Suge Knight was with the rainbow activities.
Hey, big homie, I got respect for you, but I don't even play them games,
James said cautiously, starting to get scared looking around a tiny cell, imagining what a big guy like Suge would do to a guy like him in such a confined space. Oh no, he cried in his mind as he reached for the small banger he kept under his pillow, remembering that he lent it to one of his Pacoima Pyru homies earlier. I said, "Get down here now." Shug's tenor voice got deeper as he shouted, getting up out of his bottom bunk and forcefully snatching his stocky bunkie off his bed with one hand while snatching his state-issued prison boxes down his thick legs with the other.
Man, I'm finna enjoy this.
Shug barked in his face, spraying spittle before James' counter with a three-punch combination that nearly broke the bigger man's jaw, making him drop James to the floor as he released him to wipe blood from his nostrils. Before he could make his next move, the beast used all of his 338 pounds and fell on top of the strong but smaller Jones, who just so happened to fall on his stomach, nearly crushing his face on the hard cemented floor.
Hey, fool, get your big ass up off of me.
He yelled back at Shug as he felt the sweaty man's grubby paws on his hairy buttocks, attempting to part them like plump couch pillows. As Jones used every muscle he had to try and lift the hippo off of his back, an apparition appeared laying on the ground in a dusty cell right beside him, its body glowing in the dark. "Hey, you know if he sticks it in you, you will officially be Rainbow whether you want to be or not, right?" The recognizable voice of the late Tupac Shakur emanated from the ghostly being. "Looks like he's about to stick you like he stuck me, though with me it was just money," Tupac finished before beginning a wicked laughter. A loud noise woke Wack 100 up from his drug-induced nightmare, and he sat up in his plush wafers chair with snow residue stuck to his nose and face like Tony Montana in the movie, realizing the cheeks taking attempt was just a dream. As he dizzily glanced over at his security monitors, he couldn't believe his eyes as he saw droves of intruders entering the front of his studio's damaged door, all heavily armed and engaging in firefights with his light security detail, which primarily were members of the various Blood Pyru gang sets that he hired. J. Prince's ragtag army breached Wack's studio's entrance and began their blitz of 6,878 Beck Avenue, cutting down all threats in their path. Secure in his office, which was reinforced with armor-plated walls and doors, the Coke-High Pyru went to his weapons cabinet and retrieved his prized possession, an S&T Daewoo K-11 DAW combat rifle equipped with a grenade launcher. "You'll want to play? Well, say hello to my little friend," Wack said to himself, mimicking Montana as he grabbed his iPhone and caught his artist Blueface, who was in the studio's basement recording music with a few of his friends. He instructed him to grab the glizzy hidden in the compartment behind the sound booth and make their way to his office. The slender Blueface went into action. He and his four friends, using the plastic 9mm, began to shoot their way up towards Wack's office. All of the men, save for Blue, getting struck by gunfire as more of the enemy infiltrated the building. Leaning over the pile of powder spread out on his desk, Wack took another strong sniff of dust. Glancing at his security monitors, zooming in on the camera, pointed at his office's door. "Let me in, Wack," a distraught Blueface yelled, beating on the thick steel doors as bullets whizzed past his ears. Wack flinched as the thunderous sound of gunfire erupted behind the door as he looked at the monitor and saw Blueface get riddled with bullets, his bloody palms smearing fresh blood on the door's white paint as his lifeless body began sliding to the floor. Wack mumbled as he loaded the K-11 and braced the heavy rifle on his hip, aiming at the U-office doors. Over 30 men were gathered in front of the heavy doors, intending to breach them when Wack launched a grenade, causing the steel doors to explode, exterminating 3/4 of the intruders and fatally wounding the rest. As he reloaded another grenade into the heavy rifle, a figure sneakily entered his office from the open window on the second floor, alerting him by cocking his .45 caliber. Before J. Prince Jr. could get a shot off, Wack raised his rifle and cut the younger man down, filling his body with 18 shells. Oakland rapper J. Diggs was the next op that came through the window, and he was initially able to escape Wack's lethal weapon by scooping up a handful of the powder on the desk, hurling it at the Pyru in hopes of blinding him. But the powder failed to reach its intended destination, and Wack was able to miss most of it. After regaining his stance, he aimed the K-11 and dumped a few rounds into his attacker, finishing him instantly as Wack muttered,
"There go the fade you've been crying about, you buster."
Stumbling from his high, Wack's judgment was warped, and he ran to the open window and stuck his head out to see if any more ops were climbing up the ladder that was leaning against the building, and was struck in the head by a round from a .38 caliber Smith & Wesson, owned by none other than J. Prince himself, who decided to come join his army, making sure things were handled correctly. A startled Wack quickly stuck his bleeding head back inside, but he was so coked up that he didn't even feel the pain. Holding just a rifle out of the window this time, he fired another grenade, which obliterated bodies of J. Prince, his son Jazz, and other men in the area.
"On Pyru, I told y'all we was fixing to play,"
the staggering gangster said, as he concentrated on the damaged door, seeing movement in the shadows.
"Hey, Beast, I need your help, homie."
Wack spoke into his phone's mouthpiece, clutching the K-11 in his right arm as he held it aimed at the doorway. He spent the next few minutes explaining everything to his clubhouse cohort, telling him to call all of the other 100-side clubhouse members that would be willing to pull up and help him out. But when Beast heard gunfire crackle in the background, he disappointed Wack by revealing that he wasn't really about that street life and never even held a gun before, more the less willing to drive over and aid him in a deadly shootout. Dizzy off the powder and frustrated, Wack angrily entered the hallway as a round whizzed through the doorway, hitting him.
"I knew you wasn't about that life, Beast, you lame-ass buster,"
he cursed before the bullet caused him to spin around 180 degrees, dropping his phone. "I'm finna put an end to all y'all," he roared, loading another grenade and launching it down the hallway, getting rid of at least 11 men while mortally wounding 4 more. Wack coughed from the smoke as he walked down the hallway, getting hit by more rounds as one of Nipsey Hussle's Crip members took potshots at him as he lay bleeding out on the hallway floor. Wack's K-11 nearly decapitated the soon-dead thug as its large shells entered his neck and chest as a burst was let off. A severely wounded Wack made his way down to the first floor of his studio, having a total of 7 gunshot wounds across his body so far, but the coke and adrenaline masked the pain. LAPD sirens coupled with LAFD loud horns could be heard in the near distance as the remaining soldiers in the Prince Army began to abort the mission, scattering to their transportation and peeling off to avoid arrest. As the adrenaline started wearing off, Wack limped to his Rolls-Royce in severe pain as he started wincing from movement, the damaged nerves in his body bringing him to the brink of tears. As he sped away to safety, he vowed to give revenge on everybody involved in the invasion. A few minutes into the ride, he used his Apple Watch to call and arrange emergency surgery from the home of an ex-girlfriend who was a registered nurse because he left his iPhone back at the studio and was beginning to feel the pain from the 7 holes in his body, especially the gunshot wound to his head, which was causing an excruciating headache. Luckily, his old girlfriend didn't live far, and as he broke speed limits, allowing him to be only a few minutes away from her home, he felt something crawling up his hairy tree trunk-like legs. To Wack's horror, 3 large South American banana tarantulas were creeping up his bare legs as he had loose shorts on, one of them spraying a yellow substance on his flesh that felt like burning acid on his skin. Despite his gangster exterior, Wack 100 had one big fear that made him bitch up, and that was the big word arachnophobia. Little did he know it, but his arch-nemesis, the late J. Prince, planted 6 huge, deadly spiders in his car as a just-in-case precautionary measure prior to his army breaching the entrance to 6878 Beck Avenue. The Houstonian got the deadly creatures from a friend in Costa Rica who bred exotic insects and made hundreds of thousands off of selling them. Prince invested in them as well and made a fortune too. The rare tarantulas, called banana tarantulas, weren't furry like the more common ones, but had a mustard yellow leathery exterior and ejected a poisonous venom that was also yellow in color. The other 3 spiders crawled up the Rolls-Royce's driver's seat, making their way onto Wack 100's bald head and neck, causing him to open his door and hop out of the $500,000 car while it was still in motion, ironically crashing into his ex's Honda Accord park near the curb in front of her house as he sprinted to her front door with pulsating thick boils and bumps all over his bloody body from the poisonous substance that the spider sprayed on him. Within an hour, the infamous gangbanger perished on his ex's ex-girlfriend's couch, his body a grotesque, smelly mess, and that marked an end to one of the most notorious gangsters the internet had ever seen.